My name is Theo, and I've never been the kind of person who buys into ghost stories. No Ouija boards, no sleep paralysis demons, no cursed VHS tapes. I'm a rational guy. Grew up in a house where logic was king. My dad was a science teacher, my mom, an IT manager. If something didn't make sense, we diagnosed it until it did. But there's no diagnosis for what happened to me. It started when I bought a used smart TV from a pawn shop off Eldridge and 9th. It was dusty, had a faint cigarette smell clinging to the frame, and the plastic was slightly yellowed. But it was cheap, just $70. I was broke, recently laid off, and needed something to keep me company in the silence of my one-bedroom apartment. You'd be amazed how loud loneliness gets at night. The shop owner was weird, though. He barely looked at me, just rang me up and muttered, "No refunds after sunset." I laughed. "You mean after purchase, right?" He looked up, dead serious. "No, after sunset." I should have walked out right then, but hey, $70. I chalked it up to a weird sales pitch. The first 2 nights, nothing happened. I binged old shows, muted commercials, and scrolled through apps. Everything worked fine. But on the 3rd night, just after 2 a.m., I fell asleep on the couch. That's when I heard it. Static. The loud grating kind. Like when you're stuck between channels on an old tube TV. I opened my eyes, confused. The screen was pure snow. No apps, no signal, no error message, just static. And in the middle of it was a shadow. I don't mean the reflection of a lamp or a coat hanging nearby. I mean something inside the screen standing still. Vaguely human-shaped. No face, no movement, just dark and barely distinguishable in the noise. I blinked, and it was gone. I turned the TV off and went to bed. Just a glitch, I told myself. Dust in the internals, dust in the internals. Old tech acting up. But the next night, at exactly 2:13 a.m., the same thing happened. TV turned to static on its own. Same shadow, same time. That was when the dreams started. In the dreams, I was standing in my living room, but it wasn't mine, not exactly. Same furniture, same layout, but the colors were off. Too gray, like everything had been drained of life. The TV would be on, showing the static, and I'd hear whispers, dozens of them. Male, female, young, old, but all overlapping, like they were trying to speak over each other. And through the sound, one thing was clear. He watches. I started recording the TV every night. I set up my phone facing the screen with the timestamp showing. I wanted to prove it to myself. But every time I reviewed the footage the next morning, it was just normal TV. No static, no figure, nothing. Only when I watched it live with my own eyes would he appear. And he was getting closer. By the 5th night, I saw him standing right at the edge of the frame. He wasn't some smoky shape anymore. He had details now, shoulders, a head that tilted unnaturally far, like he was trying to read my thoughts. No eyes, just pits. The static would buzz louder when he leaned forward. My nose would bleed, my ears would ring, and I couldn't look away. I unplugged the TV that night, left it off, didn't even touch it, but the screen came back on its own. 2:13 a.m., like clockwork, static, shadow, louder than ever. I threw a blanket over it and shoved it in my closet. That seemed to work. No static the next night. I thought I had finally beaten it. Until I opened my phone the next morning. The lock screen had changed. A photo of my apartment, taken from behind me while I slept. The timestamp, 2:13 a.m. That was when I started researching. I posted anonymously on forums, reached out to tech subreddits, even joined a horror Discord. One guy responded, username, no signal now. He said, "You're not the first. It's the TV. But it's not haunted. It's marked." I asked what he meant, and he sent me a Dropbox link to a folder filled with screenshots, videos, and police reports. People had seen the same figure, described the same static, and the same time each night. The common link? All of them had bought electronics from the same pawn shop. Every single one. Most of them were missing now. Official causes varied. Suicide, drug overdose, some just disappeared. But one video stood out. A guy sitting in front of his TV, pointing at the screen. He whispered, "I turned it off. I destroyed it. But now, it's in the mirrors." That night, I covered every reflective surface in my apartment. TV, phone screen, even the microwave, everything. But as I passed by my bedroom mirror, I saw it. A smudge in the corner, a black handprint. Not mine. I made one final plan. I called a friend who worked at a recycling plant and begged him to take the TV and grind it down to pieces. I drove across the city with the thing wrapped in blankets, double-checked the backseat every few minutes. I didn't care how crazy I sounded. I needed it gone. He agreed, took it off my hands, and promised it would be destroyed by nightfall. That night, for the first time in days, I slept and dreamed. In the dream, I was standing in my living room again. Everything was gray, except this time, the TV was gone. But he wasn't. He stood in front of me, in the flesh, no longer inside the screen. He had no mouth, but I heard his voice. "You saw me. That was enough." When I woke up, every screen in my apartment was shattered. My phone, my monitor, my backup TV I had boxed away in the closet, every reflective surface cracked. But one mirror was intact, the bedroom mirror. And etched into the glass, barely visible unless the light hit it just right, were 3 words. "Now you watch." It's been 4 days since then. I boarded up the apartment. I keep the lights on. I don't use screens. I don't look into mirrors. But sometimes I hear static in the walls. And at 2:13 a.m., something knocks once, then waits, because he's still watching. And one night, I think he'll want me to watch back. And that concludes our journey through the shadows for tonight. If you made it this far, you're either braver than most, or already marked by what you've heard. Tomorrow is day 10, and trust me, the darkness only deepens from here. Subscribe, keep your lights low, and I'll see you at sundown. Until then, stay scared. Good night. They called him a spook, a ghost chaser, a warder of the dark, a man who walked into cursed places and walked out alive. Mostly. Villagers rarely knew his name. They just knew he came when summoned, and that evil left in his wake. Tonight, He was working the edge of a forest near the village of Crowthistle. A child had gone missing, dragged into the trees by something they called the Hollow-Eyed. It wasn't the first time this creature had taken a soul. The villagers feared the woods so much they wouldn't step within 20 feet of the tree line. But the spook had gone in alone. He carried his usual gear: iron dust, chalk symbols, salt pouches, a hand-carved totem made from a rowan branch, and his blade, a long silvered knife etched with runes known only to his order. The woods were too quiet. No birds, no insects, just the hush of trees like they were listening, waiting. He moved carefully, his eyes darting through the shadows. Then it happened. The Hollow-Eyed burst from beneath the earth, not from above or the side, like he'd expected, but up, like a grave cracking open. It was fast, much faster than the spook anticipated. The creature's face was just a suggestion of bone, sunken holes for eyes, no nose, and a black mouth that gaped unnaturally wide. He slashed. The thing's claw raked his side, tearing through coat, cloth, and flesh. His blood hit the forest floor like warm rain. Pain screamed across his body. He stumbled back, fell against a tree, and barely kept the creature at bay with a flare of salt and iron. It recoiled, shrieking, but not for long. He ran or limped, a half-run, half-crawl through roots and brush, blood spilling freely, soaking his trousers and boots. The Hollow-Eyed followed him, drawn by the scent. It wasn't just the blood that called it, it was the fear. He had only one option: reach the trap. The spook had prepared it hours earlier as a failsafe. He never fully trusted the intelligence of monsters, but this one was different. It stalked, it tested, it baited him with a child's shoe placed neatly on a stump. It knew what it was doing. He clutched his side, breath ragged. The air around him grew colder, his vision blurred. But he was close. The stones were set in a ring, the sigil carved into their sides. He just had to make it there. 20 feet. Behind him, branches snapped. 15 feet. The low growl echoed from the trees. The scent of decay and old graves filled the air. 10 feet. He collapsed. The world tilted sideways. Black spots danced in his vision. He crawled, teeth gritted, blood soaking the ground behind him. 5 feet. He reached into his satchel and threw the last of the iron dust behind him. The creature screamed, furious. It did not stop. The moment he crossed into the circle, he reached for the final piece, the ignition stone, a shard of quartz soaked in holy oil and engraved with the warding mark of Saint Arnulf. He slammed it into the center of the trap. The stones around the circle flared with pale blue light. A dome of force shimmered into existence. The creature lunged. It hit the invisible wall and howled. Its face twisted in fury. It clawed at the barrier, pacing around it, nose to the ground, breathing deep. The spook grinned, weak, lopsided. "You'll have to do better than that," he muttered. The creature circled once, then vanished into the dark. The trap would only hold for an hour, maybe less. He looked down, blood pooled beneath him. He needed to stitch his wounds. He needed a fire. He needed bandages, but his hands wouldn't move. The forest pulsed around him. Shadows danced just outside the glow of the trap. His breathing slowed, his eyes fluttered. And then, darkness. He didn't dream, not of childhood, not of home, just black.
He awoke to light filtering through trees and the smell of ash. Someone had found him. He wasn't sure if it was dawn or dusk, but the fire was real, and he was wrapped in something warm. A face leaned over him, wrinkled, kind, familiar.
"Your kind never learns,"
the old woman said.
"You always think you're prepared, but the dog, it has teeth."
She was a healer from the village. He'd seen her before. She had the mark of a ward maker on her left palm, a scar from an old ritual gone wrong.
"How long?"
he croaked.
2 days.
His eyes went wide. The trap.
Held for one, then it broke.
His heart sank. She smiled.
"Don't worry. Whatever was after you, it never came back. Something about the scent of burning sage and wolf's blood scared it off."
He let out a raspy chuckle, then winced. "You always did have stronger spells than me."
"That's why I'm still alive."
She paused.
"You're lucky. But you knew that already."
He tried to sit up. She pressed him down gently.
"Rest. There are more monsters out there. And next time, they won't miss your heart."
The spook lay back, eyes to the trees above, listening to the wind rustle through the leaves. Next time, he'd be ready, because evil never waits long, and neither did he. The fire crackles, the forest breathes, but evil still waits in the dark. Thanks for listening to the Draconian Universe. If you enjoyed this tale of blood, shadows, and survival, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss what creeps in next. Drop a comment below. What would you have done in the spook's place? And do you think the Hollowed-Eyed is truly gone? Until next time, watch the shadows. They're watching you. Good night. They met the way lonely people do on a dating app. It had only been a month since Marcus's last relationship fell apart. The breakup had blindsided him. One day, his girlfriend of 2 years was there. The next, she was gone, offering only a vague, "I need to find myself," before disappearing completely. It left him numb. So when the app chirped with a new match, Eva with a V, and her first message read, "Hey, you look like someone who needs saving," it felt like fate stepping in with a warm hand. She was funny, smart, beautiful in a vintage noir kind of way. Sharp jaw, red lips, and eyes that never quite seemed to blink enough. They talked for hours. Within a week, she was coming over. Within a month, she was staying the night. Within 3 months, she had a key to his apartment. It was fast, but everything about her was intoxicating. At first. Then came the oddities. At first, it was subtle. She didn't like mirrors. She'd throw a blanket over the bathroom one at night. She refused to eat leftovers. If something sat in the fridge for more than a few hours, she'd throw it out, even if it was his. She'd hum a lullaby while he slept, the same tune every night, low, slow, unnerving. She had no online presence, no Instagram, no Facebook. She said she didn't believe in being watched. Then it got darker. One night, Marcus came home from work to find her sitting on the floor in his living room, surrounded by old photographs. They weren't his. They weren't even hers. They were photos of strangers. All of them smiling. Some of them clearly taken without consent. One had a date written on the back, 10/21. This one was easy. He confronted her. She laughed it off. I found them in a thrift store. Kinda weird, right? Thought you liked weird things. He wanted to believe her, but the unease stayed. And then he found the notebook. Buried in her tote bag, page after page of names crossed out. Notes about where they lived, who they were dating, what time they left their jobs. And near the middle, circled in red ink, Marcus Landry, 3rd week, vulnerability spike, marked. That was the final straw. He didn't confront her. He didn't scream or accuse or argue. Instead, one afternoon while she was at work, he packed a duffel bag, deleted his social accounts, changed his number, and drove 4 hours north to a new city. He rented a cheap studio under a fake last name, started using cash, and told only 2 friends where he'd gone. He blocked her on everything, changed his emails, paid to have his personal info scrubbed from the internet. It felt cowardly, but something about her terrified him in a way he couldn't articulate. Like if he had tried to break up the normal way, something irreversible would have happened. Something sharp and violent. So he vanished. For a while, it worked. He got a new job bartending nights. Started running again. Slept better. Until the dead bird showed up. It was outside his apartment door, chest torn open, wings snapped, feathers arranged in a perfect circle around it. Animal attack? Maybe. He brushed it off. Then, his front door was unlocked one night when he came home. Nothing missing, but the toothpaste cap was off. His coffee mug was facing the wrong way. He stopped sleeping. Then the fire alarm went off while he was in the shower. Smoke filled the hallway. Someone had left a burning towel on the stove. The landlord called it a freak accident. But Marcus knew. It was her. He changed buildings again, moved across the city, but she found him again. One night, he woke up to find his bedroom window wide open, though he knew he'd locked it. Another night, he found a note taped to his bathroom mirror. You're hardest to love when you're scared. I'll teach you not to be. He called the police, filed a report, showed them the note, told them everything. They listened, took it down, and left. There were no fingerprints, no security footage. She was a ghost. The breaking point came on a rainy Thursday. Marcus had just finished a shift and was walking to his car. It was parked in the corner of the lot, behind the bar. He clicked the key fob. The car exploded. Or it almost did. Something popped. The front tire blew out and the windshield shattered. Shards rained down as he dove behind a dumpster. No fire, no explosion, but on the hood, scratched in something dark and greasy, were the words, "Next time, I don't miss." He showed it to the police again. They took it seriously this time, sort of. An officer stayed with him that night. Nothing happened. The next day, he was left alone again. He moved again, out of state. Changed his name legally this time. burned the last bridge to his old life. He's alive. That much is true. But he's not safe. Because she's still out there. And sometimes, when he's walking home late from his new job, or when he sees someone watching just a little too long at the grocery store, he wonders if she's already found him again. Because Ava always knew how to find people, especially the ones who tried to leave her. They met on a dating app. She saved him from his loneliness, and now he'll never stop looking over his shoulder, wondering if the next stranger he bumps into is her. You never really know someone until it's too late. Thanks for joining me for day 11 of the Draconian Universe. If this story gave you chills, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell, because there's a new horror waiting every day this month. And tell me in the comments, have you ever had an ex who made your skin crawl, or worse, one who never let go? Until tomorrow, keep your doors locked and never trust a perfect match. She might still be watching. Good night.
Mara had only been to the cabin once in her life, and even then, it was in fragments of memory. Damp wood, the sharp stink of pine, and her mother's silhouette framed in the cracked window. Her mother, Eliza, had been many things: reclusive, paranoid, strange. After she vanished 3 months ago, Mara figured the property would be sold and forgotten. But the will was clear. The land, the home, and everything within now belonged to her. She didn't want it, but curiosity and perhaps guilt had a way of clawing at her resolve. The cabin sat nestled deep in the Blue Ridge Mountains, far from phone service or paved roads. The trees loomed overhead, choking out the sky, and the winding path leading to the cabin was carpeted with rotting leaves. Moss draped over everything, like a shroud. The front door creaked open with a reluctant groan. The scent hit her first, earthy, musty, metallic. The place felt more like a crypt than a home. Dust hung thick in the air, disturbed only by her cautious footsteps. Everything was untouched. A teacup sat on the armrest of a chair, half full. Dried flowers curled in their vases like dead fingers. And journals, dozens of them, stacked on shelves, scattered across tables, even in the oven. Pages upon pages of her mother's writing, erratic, slanted, often scrawled over itself, like she was trying to bury her thoughts. And then there were the jars, tucked into every corner, behind furniture, under loose floorboards, glass jars filled with soil. Some held worms, others held things, unmoving things, coiled, pulsing things. Mara felt her skin crawl as she twisted one jar in her hand. The worm inside flexed in the dirt, as if sensing her touch. She put it down quickly. Mara spent the first night in her car. The wind howled through the trees like a warning, and the cabin's windows glared at her through the dark-like eyes. But the next morning, despite the unease, she returned inside, driven by something she couldn't explain. Her mother's madness had always frightened her, but now she needed to understand it. The journals read, like a descent into delirium.
They come across through the soil. The worms are not worms. They're mouths. They whisper if you listen long enough. And if you feed them, they grow. Every mother must make a choice, to give birth or to be consumed. I chose both. The dirt remembers, the worms remember. I buried it, but they still know my name.
It didn't make sense at first, but then Mara began to hear it too. Not clearly, never directly, just a soft, constant hum beneath the floorboards, like a writhing sigh. She pressed her ear to the wooden planks and froze. Movement, shifting, slithering. She backed away, heart pounding. Just the pipes, she told herself. Old houses made noises, but the longer she stayed, the less comfort that excuse offered. She began dreaming for her mother, standing at the foot of her bed, pale, barefoot, earth on her lips. She would whisper,
"You'll understand soon, Mara. Blood calls to blood."
The third day brought a new horror. Mara woke to find dirt scattered across the floor, leading from the kitchen to the basement door. Small piles of soil and something that looked suspiciously like drag marks, as if something had been pulled below. She hadn't gone into the basement yet. The door had been jammed, the lock rusted shut, but now it was open, barely. She descended slowly, flashlight in hand. The beam revealed a narrow room lined with more jars, hundreds of them. The walls were covered in black mold, and the air was thick, damp, hard to breathe. And in the far corner, a shallow pit. It was maybe 5 feet across, dug directly into the foundation, and it pulsed. The dirt moved like something was breathing beneath it. Mara gagged on the smell. Then she saw the bowl, a ceramic offering bowl, smeared with what looked like blood. Flies buzzed lazily around its rim. She turned and fled. That night, she tried to leave. She packed her bag, grabbed her keys, and marched to the car. But the engine wouldn't start. Not a click, not a sound, just the dead, choking silence of the woods. When she returned to the cabin, the dirt trail was back, and now it led to her bedroom. She didn't sleep. By the 5th day, Mara had stopped pretending this was normal. She heard the whispers constantly now, not just under the floorboards, in the walls, in the jars, inside her own mouth. They weren't in English, but she understood them. They spoke of hunger, of return, of birth. She flipped through the final journal. The last entry was smeared, frantic.
They are ready. I can feel them inside me. I fed them long enough. Soon, I will be nothing but a tunnel, a mother, not to children, but to worms, to gods. Tell Mara I'm sorry. Tell her she'll do better than I did. Tell her not to fight it. Fighting makes it worse.
That night, Mara's belly began to ache. Deep, throbbing pain. She doubled over on the floor, gasping, fingers twitching against the wooden planks. She could feel movement, not in her stomach, but lower, in her spine, her ribs, under her skin. When she stripped in the bathroom and looked in the mirror, she saw something bulging under her flesh, something wiggling.
No.
She grabbed a knife. It was just a dream. It had to be. Mara jolted awake on the bathroom floor, the knife still in her grip, her shirt soaked with sweat, not blood. The bulges were gone. But the whispers remained. She stumbled into the living room. All the jars were open. The worms were gone. She heard something behind her. Slow, slick movement. Turning around, she saw it. From the pit of the basement, something was rising. A massive, pale form, made of soil and sinew, covered in writhing worms. At its center, a face, her mother's face, twisted in agony and reverence, chanting words that vibrated through the cabin like thunder.
She is born. She is fed. She is mother now.
Mara fell to her knees as the worms poured toward her, up her legs, into her mouth, her nose, her ears. She screamed until there was no breath left to scream with. A month later, a couple hiking the Blue Ridge Trails spotted a woman sitting outside a dilapidated cabin, rocking slowly on the porch. She was serene, silent, eyes milky, hands covered in dirt. She smiled as they approached.
"We've been waiting for you," she said sweetly. "Would you like to see the nursery? The soil remembers, and now, so do you. If you're still listening, thank you for braving tonight's tale. Mother of Worms has been fed, and so has your fear. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Tomorrow, we descend even deeper. Day 13 is not for the faint of heart. Until then, stay scared.
Stay draconian. Good night.
The tape began with static. Detective Martinez leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowed at the old cassette recorder, humming on the table. The room was dim, the blinds drawn, the air stagnant with the weight of something final. Then came the voice, calm, gritty, a low, almost soothing tone.
If you're listening to this, then I'm already dead. That's not a dramatization. I made sure of it. You won't find me. That was the point. You want answers. You'll get them. But you won't like them. This isn't a confession. This is my obituary. Written by the only person who gave a damn. Me. I was born in a trailer that should have been condemned a decade before I breathed in the moldy air. My father was a drunk who liked silence more than people. And when he got angry, he made sure silence followed. My mother was a ghost in the flesh. She existed to serve his beer and bleed in silence. My earliest memory? Hiding in the oven when they fought. One night, he shoved her head through the TV screen. The static felt like it was burning my ears as I cried inside the kitchen. And all she said after was, "Go to bed. No hugs, no comfort, just more silence." That's when I realized nobody was coming to save me, ever. School wasn't better. I wore clothes that stank of mildew and sweat. I didn't know how to tie my shoes until I was 9. My teeth were yellow and my skin always had a gray tinge from the dirt I couldn't scrub off. They called me names: rat skin, trash baby, stink boy. One teacher even asked the class if they'd ever smelled failure. They all looked at me. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I'd learned that crying made it worse. Nobody saw me. Not really. Just a thing to avoid or mock. And like all things neglected, I rotted from the inside. The first time I killed something, it wasn't a person. It was a rabbit. It had a broken leg. The neighborhood boys threw rocks at it. I chased them off, took the rabbit home, tried to help it. For 3 days, I fed it weeds, tried to splint its leg with a popsicle stick. It cried at night, loud, painful. My dad kicked the door down and shouted at me for the noise. I waited until he passed out. Then I took the rabbit into the woods. I pet its ears, I told it I was sorry, and then I ended it with a rock. That was the first time I felt powerful. Not because I killed something, but because, for once, I stopped the pain. I left home at 16, slept behind dumpsters, ate out of bins, did things I don't want to remember just to survive. Every job I ever had, I was either fired for smelling bad or because I made customers uncomfortable. People act like trauma gives you purpose, like it's a fire you can forge something from. That's a lie. Some people's trauma is just an acid bath. And I had been soaking in it my whole damn life. So I stopped trying. Her name was Candace. She worked the coffee shop night shift. She was the first person to ever look at me in my eyes and smile like I wasn't a freak. We talked, laughed even. For 2 months, I came every night. She remembered my order. She asked about my day. Then one night, I saw her outside the shop, kissing someone. It was handsome, clean, everything I wasn't. I waited until he left, followed her home, not out of rage, out of curiosity. I asked her, trembling, "Was I ever something to you?" She said, "You're sweet, but you make me uncomfortable sometimes." Uncomfortable. There it was again. My life in one word. I didn't plan it, I really didn't. But when she screamed, something inside me cracked wide open. And then, silence. Blessed, perfect silence. They weren't random, not like you think. They were people who treated others like trash. Landlords who evicted mothers. Bosses who fired workers over one mistake. Bullies in business suits. They were echoes of my past in new costumes. I never tortured them, never drew it out. I wasn't a monster. I just wanted it to stop. I wanted the world to feel, just for a second, the weight I carried since birth. I didn't kill to feel joy. I killed to feel nothing. That was the closest I ever got to peace. Her name was Mara. She was homeless, like me. We met behind a soup kitchen. She had eyes like broken glass, sharp and fragile. I told her she should run, that I wasn't safe. She said, "Neither am I." We shared food, stories. I let her sleep beside me. I never touched her, never hurt her. For a few weeks, I forgot I was broken. I smiled without hearing screams behind my ears. Then she disappeared. 2 days later, I found her in a dumpster, OD'd, and I felt it again. That old fire. I tracked down the man who sold her the drugs. I left him in pieces across 4 alleyways. It didn't bring her back. Nothing ever does. The papers called me the quiet surgeon, said I was methodical, precise, like I planned it all. They never understood. I didn't do it to become something. I did it because I was already something. Something the world made. Each body I left behind wasn't a cry for help. It was a tombstone for the boy nobody helped. You're looking for closure. You won't get it. I didn't want to be saved. I wanted to be understood. And now, maybe, someone will. This is not a confession. This is the truth. My name was Elias Ray Mallory. I was born in dirt, raised in silence, molded by cruelty. And I ended as I began, alone and unheard.
The tape ended. Silence filled the room. Detective Martinez pressed stop. For a long moment, he said nothing. Just stared at the recorder like it might speak again. No one ever found Elias's body. But his words lingered like the smell of blood. Impossible to ignore. Impossible to forget. And that was the final message from a man who didn't want sympathy, only to be heard. Elias Mallory's life was a tragic descent into the darkest corner of humanity, shaped by pain, isolation, and a system that never cared. His story is not meant to excuse, but to reveal the cost of a world without compassion. If this disturbed you, it was meant to. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow for another nightmarish tale. Until then, stay alert, stay haunted, and stay draconian.
We, watchers, are bound by sacred laws to observe, to chronicle, and never interfere. Our eyes stretch across galaxies and dimensions, collecting stories of love, destruction, ascension, and decay. But me, I'm different. I have seen too much, felt too much. And there comes a point where witnessing evil is not enough. You either turn your gaze or you act. I am the one they whisper about, the rogue among the watchers. And if they ever discover the truth, the consequences will ripple across eternity. But tonight, I made a choice. A man, an officer of the law, was supposed to die, but I intervened. His name is Officer Derek Hall. Louisiana-born, stubborn as cypress roots, and pure of heart. The kind of man the world rarely recognizes until it's too late. Tonight, he was called to a house for a noise complaint. Just another page in his book, until I made it a chapter in mine. The cruiser rolled to a stop in front of the property, headlights washing over peeling paint and broken shutters. A small shack at the edge of the swamp. He killed the engine and stepped out, boots crunching over gravel, yelling. Faint but angry, male voice, maybe two. Then silence. Derek adjusted his vest and approached, the stink of the swamp mixing with rotting wood. He knocked twice on the weather-worn door.
This is the Livingston Sheriff's Office. Got a noise complaint out here. Just want to make sure everything's all right.
No response. He knocked again, louder.
Sir, open the door. I heard you yelling. You okay in there?
A moment later, the door creaked open, a sliver. A head peeked out, greasy hair, wild eyes, breath that smelled like rot. The man wore tattered overalls, soaked in mud, and something darker. "Evening, officer," the man rasped. "You lost or something?"
No, I'm not lost. Just got a call about shouting. Need to make sure no one's hurt in there. Is everything okay?
The man's expression darkened.
What happens in my house ain't none of your concern. You got a warrant? No? Then buzz off. He started to close the door, but Derek instinctively stepped forward, boot wedging into the gap.
Sir, I need you to step outside, just for a few questions.
That was when he should have died. The man behind the door had already drawn his gun. I saw it. Milliseconds ahead in the river of time. The trigger squeezed, the chamber fired, and I interfered. Splinters exploded from the frame near his head. He stumbled back, heart pounding, and instinctively drew his weapon. He didn't aim, he didn't think, but his hands moved like they knew exactly what to do. Each shot was precise. 4 rounds, all center mass. The suspect reeled back, a spray of blood on the wall behind him as he collapsed through the open door. Derek blinked. His hands trembled, but he felt guided. He keyed the mic on his shoulder.
Shots fired! Suspect down, EMS needed.
The scene was still, save for the faint gurgle from the man in the doorway. Derek moved with caution, weapon still drawn. I had guided his hands. A forbidden act. I felt the pull of the tether that binds watchers to non-interference stretch and fray. But I had to. The man had darkness in him that bled through dimensions. What he did in that house, no being, mortal or eternal, could stomach. Inside, the stench hit like a wall. Feces, urine, rotting food. The place looked abandoned and occupied at the same time. Mattresses covered in stains, old toys, chains.
Is anyone here?
Derek called out.
If you need help, call out.
Nothing. But something, some deep gut-level instinct, pulled him towards the back room. He stepped inside, eyes scanning, and noticed a lumpy carpet by a toppled chair. He peeled it back. Wooden floor, trap door. He hesitated, then opened it. A ladder, a dark hole, a muffled whimper. Flashlight drawn. He descended. The beam of light hit pale faces, small, terrified eyes. Children, at least 7, dirty, shaking, huddled together in a crude basement. In the middle of them stood a man. Not like the man he'd shot. This one was clean, calm, dressed in a black coat with eyes like stars reflecting eternity. Me. Derek raised his gun.
Hands up, now!
But I didn't move. Instead, my voice echoed inside his mind, not through ears, but through soul.
I am not your enemy, Officer Hall. In fact, I saved your life.
He didn't lower the gun.
Who are you?
He said.
I am a watcher. Or I was. I broke the rules tonight. I saved you. The man above was going to kill you. And these children were going to die in darkness. I know you felt it. Something intervening.
Derek's voice cracked.
How do I know you're not lying?
You don't. But look at them. Do they look harmed? I'm the reason they're still breathing. I've been watching over them for a while now. Waiting for you, Officer Hall.
Derek looked again. The children stared at me with awe, not fear. Like I was their protector.
I've watched this world decay. I've seen the wicked thrive while the righteous fall. I cannot simply watch anymore.
I stepped forward.
And I need a vessel. Someone willing, someone strong. I want to show you more. Cleanse more. Stop when no one else can.
Derek's hands dropped to his sides. The weight of everything crushed him. The house, the gunfire, the children. Me. What exactly are you asking me to become? I said a single word.
Justice.
He said yes, not with words, with the silence of a man who had made peace with purpose. And so I stepped into him, not to control, but to awaken. Together, we will hunt what slithers in the dark. Together, we will make a new chapter in this world. The other Watchers will come for me. Let them try. This story has only just begun. Some stories aren't meant to be heard, but remembered. Tonight, we met a Watcher who broke the rules and a man who chose to become something more. But make no mistake, this isn't the end. It's the beginning of a much darker purpose. Thank you for joining me for Day 14 of the June Horror Marathon. Tomorrow, we descend even deeper. Until then, stay alert, stay haunted, and stay draconian. Good night.